ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन् इति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी सत्यादेशतारिणे जय श्री चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैता गदाधारा श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंदा जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैता गदाधारा श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय राधा गोपीनाथ श्री राधे जय राधा माधव श्री राधे जय जगन्नाथ जय बलदेवा सुभद्रा माई जय सुदर्शना जय गिरि गोवर्धन जय गिरि गोवर्धन जय गौरानिताय जय गौरानिताय जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव जय हो जय गुरुदेव गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल। नमो विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिवराचार्य स्तोत्र सह श्रीमती डिवाइन ग्रेस अभय चरणार विंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी शिल प्रभुपाद की इस्कॉन फाउंडर आचार्य शिल प्रभुपाद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमा श्लोकैर्भक्तिर्भवती नैष्टिकी मुखं करोति वाचालां भङ्गुं लङ्घायते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनधारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरं हरि ओं तत्सत्. So we are continuing our journey on Canto 2 of Chapter 4. We have finished until text 10. Today we are going to start with text 11. The first 10 verses, it includes the prayers of Sukadeva Goswami. The questions of Maharaj Parikshit that was first asked by Saunaka Rishi to the Suta Goswami, and then in turn the question that were asked by Parikshit Maharaj and the qualifications of Parikshit Maharaj. Now Sukadeva Goswami is going to start answering. So we will see the prayer first. The next 14 shlokas are prayers of Sukadeva Goswami before he starts answering. So as we all know, it is very auspicious to start our any activity with the prayers to the Lord. Anything, whether it is spiritual, material. In Varnashrama system, everything is first always started with prayer to the Lord. So here we see Sukadeva Goswami following the same thing. Suta uvacha iti pamandrito rajna gunanukatena harehe rishikesham anusmritya prativaktum prachakrame. Translation. Suta Goswami said, when Sukadeva Goswami was thus requested by the king to describe the creative energy of the personality of Godhead, he then systematically remembered the master of senses, Sri Krishna. To reply properly, he spoke thus. So, the purport to this verse is very important. It has a lot of practical application. Srila Prabhupada is very beautifully describing how a preacher should behave when he is talking about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Um, Very clearly, the first line itself, Srila Prabhupada explains that when we preach, many a times I have seen devotees, sometimes devotees say this, I'm not qualified to preach, I don't know slokas in Bhagavad Gita, I don't know this part of Bhagavatam, I don't know many slokas, I'm not an eloquent speaker. All this is not a qualification for a speaker, particularly when it comes to talking about Krishna. Any other subject matter, even if it is within the Vedic culture, if it is something on the jnana, yoga, or karma, yes, knowledge is important. Here, the more important than the knowledge is the dependency on Krishna. It is Krishna who is empowering us, and Krishna is only making us speak. Last week's class, we saw about how Rupa Goswami was able to understand the deeper, innermost part of Krishna himself, or the mood of Radharani. He was able to understand that mood and he is able to describe that mood. So when somebody becomes the devotee of the Lord, they take control so much of the Lord that they are able to see the innermost desire of the Lord, and they are able to eloquently, the verses of Rupa Goswami and Jiva Goswami, they are considered. Actually, there was one Sanskrit scholar who is not a devotee, but then he described Jiva Goswami as the greatest Sanskrit scholar of all time. So like that, we see many praises of the devotees. So the capability to talk about Krishna will come to us through Krishna. But most important thing is that is we need to be, as Prabhupada explains, we need to be induced to be speak by the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada talks about, particularly here, the word Hrishikesha, master of senses, is used. So if we he becomes the master of our senses, to that level we surrender to him. So the more and more we surrender, the more and more he takes control. So when a devotee, that's why we say wherever there is Krishna, devotee talks about Krishna, Krishna is present there, because it's not devotee who is talking, it's Krishna from the heart who's inducing the devotee to talk. So actually Krishna is personally present there. there. So this is something that we need to keep very clear in mind, that we are able to preach by the mercy of the Lord. So we need to keep that in mind. Not because of our capability we will be able to preach. So that's the first verse. So that point is driven even before Sukadeva Goswami starts talking. Text 12. Shri Sukha Uvacha Nama Parasmai Purushaya Bhuyase Sad Udbhavasthana Nirodha Leelaya Grihita Shakti Triyaya Dehinam Antarbhavayanupalakshaya Vartamane. Sukadeva Goswami said, "Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who for the creation of the material world accepts the three modes of nature. He is complete whole residing within the body of everyone, and he is all his ways are inconceivable." So the first prayer itself, Sukadeva Goswami, he is explaining in an indirect way, he is giving an answer, but first he is explaining the nature of the Lord. The Lord, he is beyond the three modes, but still he accepts the three modes in the forms of Vishnu for Sattva Guna, Brahma for Rajoguna, and Lord Shiva for Tamo Guna. So the Lord accepts these incarnations to do creation, maintenance, and destructions. And also, he is the super soul living in everybody's heart, and the reason why the each of the living entity is able to do or relate to the material body, right? We have this desire that we want to lord it over, so Krishna gave us the material body, but in order to create that connection and also to understand the need of the soul, he has come as a Paramatma and he is sitting with us. So he is the original Atma of the Atma. So that is the first prayer Sukadeva Goswami is explaining. Uh, text 13. Bhuyo namas sadvrijana chide satam asambhavaya yakila sattvamurtaye pumsam puna paramahamse ashrame vyavastitanam anumrugya dasushe. Translation. I again offer my respectful obeisances unto the form of complete existence and transcendence, who is the liberator of the pious devotees from all the distress and the destroyer of further advances in atheistic temperament of the non-devotee demons. For the transcendentalists who are situated in topmost spiritual perfection, he grants their specific destination. So here again, Sukadeva Goswami is talking about the activities of the Lord. But we need to understand one thing, which is explained by Jiva Goswami and also Sridhar Swami, that the Krishna's main activity is not reciprocating with the desires of everybody or the needs of these innumerable parts and parcel. Rather, he is supremely independent enjoyer. The action he enacts for his own pleasure, which has nothing to do with the innumerable desires of the individual living entities, occur in the spiritual world, a realm which is not accessible to us or not accessible to non-devotees. So as we, until we achieve the perfection, that when we completely surrender to the Lord, that's when we start participating in the activities that Krishna is engaging as an independent enjoyer. And as we participate in those activities, then we receive unlimited pleasure, right? So these two are activities of Krishna, that is to fulfill the desire of the devotees and to um, you know uh, and to give happy and to stop the advancement of non-devotees. These two are, Krishna also says, yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bharata. So these are all the activities of the Lord, but then they are not the main activities of the Lord. They only partial activities of the Lord. The original activity of the Lord is where he is enacting his own pastimes in the spiritual world. So Prabhupada talks about the Prakriti, two kinds of Prakriti. So he talks about the spiritual and the existence. And then in the second part of the purport, Srila Prabhupada is talking about the Paramahamsa stage. He talks about four different forms of sannyas, which is Kutichaka, Bahudaka, Parivragacharya, and Paramahamsa. And particularly, it is said that he is the master of the Paramahamsas because Paramahamsa, Hamsa means swan. And great people are compared to Hamsas because Hamsa has the capability to take, if water and milk are mixed together, it has the capability to drink only the water and leave the milk. So, similarly, Paramahamsas, they are always interested only in engaging in the service of the Lord, whatever situation whatever is the ratio, the Hamsa can pull only the milk. Similarly, wherever they are, whatever position they are in, the Paramahamsas can always engage in the service of the Lord. And Prabhupada very clearly emphasizes that Paramahamsa means only devotees can be Paramahamsas. Uh, and Jiva Goswami also has accepted that one who has accepted Bhakti Yoga to be the topmost, he is Paramahamsa. So, particularly here, that is emphasized to show that even though Krishna is there, Krishna fulfills the desire of the material entities. He is actually, his original activity is to engage or uh, his own enjoyment along with the Paramahamsa devotee. Text 14. Namo namaste stva rishabhaya satvatam vidurakastaya muhukku yoginam nirasta samyati sayena radasa swadhamani brahmani ramsyate namaha. So, translation: let me offer my respectful obeisances unto He who is the associate of the members of Yadu dynasty and who is always a problem for the non-devotees. He is the supreme enjoyer of both the material and spiritual world, yet he enjoys his own abode in the spiritual sky. There is no one equal to him because his transcendental opulence is immeasurable. So he of the previous verse, but in a more detailed way, that he is an associate of the members of, he is particularly here identifying who is the supreme personality of Godhead, that Krishna, who is born in the Yadu dynasty, and he is a problem for non-devotees. So somebody may ask a question: Krishna is supposed to be impartial. Why is he favorable to the devotees, fulfilling the desire of the devotees, and why is he stopping the advancement of the non-devotee, or who is a problem for a non-devotee? Krishna doesn't. Krishna, he doesn't create a problem on his own, but whoever Krishna is, his nature is a problem for the non-devotees, because non-devotee means one who doesn't accept Krishna. That means they want to be the enjoyer, or the root cause of that is envy. So for envy, even though the other person is a problem, I am envious of my neighbor. If he buys a car, I feel very unhappy, right? If he buys a big car, I feel very unhappy. That is the basic definition of envy. Now, the externally it may look like the person who is buying car is the root cause of my problem, but actually the root cause of my own problem is my envy. If I give up the enviousness, it doesn't matter whether he has a car or a bike or a boat or whatever it is. So the root cause, the problem is myself, but externally it looks like the neighbor is suffering because of neighbor is the root cause of my suffering. Similarly, for living entities who are not devotees of the Lord, because every living entity in this material world is here because of envy, automatically becomes a problem for them. That you see, the atheists are so strong on denying Krishna because the moment they accept God, they cannot enjoy on their own. So to enjoy on their own, they have to not accept Krishna, because they accept Krishna, then he becomes a problem for their own enjoyment. So the description of a non-devotee is one who wants to satisfy himself and who is not engaged in the service of the Lord. So then Krishna doesn't create hurdle. We are creating our own hurdle, being a non-devotee of the Lord. And Srila Sridhara Swami, when in his commentary on this text 14, along with the text, the previous verse, he seems to indicate Krishna's partiality, right? Krishna appears to reward his devotees and chastise the demons. Sridhar Swami, in his purport, he indicates that Krishna's partiality is not a defect. This is another angle to look at it. Even though Krishna is behaving exactly like it is, and it is based on our own problem, we are perceiving him different. There is another way to look at this partiality as well, which Sridhar Swami is explaining. He is explaining that because of Krishna's achintya sakti, that is his inconceivable nature, uh, his partiality, even though he looks partial, he is actually not partial. Um, Jiva Goswami explains this in his Paramahamsa Sandarbha by quoting Bhishma Deva, right? Because Bhishma Deva prays in his prayers, he is saying, being the absolute personality of Godhead, he is present in everyone's heart. He is equally kind to everyone and he is free from the false ego of differentiation. Therefore, whatever he does is free from material inability. He is equibalanced, yet despite his being equally kind to everyone, he has graciously come before me while I am ending my life, for I am his unflinching servitor. So Bhishma Deva is saying he is equal to everybody, but still he has come in front of me. He is in everybody's heart, he is equal to everybody. But because I am his servitor, he is responding to me in that mood. So whatever mood we approach in Krishna, Krishna approaches us in that. So he's not partial. If somebody wants to be envious of him, he responds to him in that way. If somebody wants to attack and fight with him, he responds into this way. If somebody wants to be a servitor of him, he responds to him in that way. So from his angle, he is not partial, but still from the angle of Jiva, he is a partial. So this is something that we cannot understand because it's his inconceivable nature. So this is something very beautiful. Text 15. Yat kirtanam, yat smaranam, yat ikshanam, yat vandanam, yat shravanam, yat arhanam, lokasya sadyo vidunoti kalmasam, tasmai subhatra shravase namo namaha. It's a very important verse. Translation: Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto all auspicious Lord Sri Krishna, about whom glorification, remembrance, audience, prayers, hearing, and worship can at once cleanse the effects of all sins of the performer. So here, Sukadeva Goswami, he wants to inspire his people who are hearing this Bhagavatam with the faith that will assist them in taking shelter of the Lord. Sukadeva Goswami, he speaks on Krishna's unconceivable potencies, right? So this is the first part, which is the sublime, in the purport Srila Prabhupada to this verse, he is explaining the sublime form of religious performances to free oneself from all reactions of sin is suggested herein by the great authority Sri Sukadeva Goswami. So what is the sublime form of religious performance? Srila Prabhupada explains in the next few lines. The devotee, Prabhupada explains, he is not disappointed that Krishna is not physically present, right? They are always able to associate with Krishna by the process of chanting, hearing, remembering, etc. It gives exactly the same results, Srila Prabhupada explains, as if we are associating with the Lord. Even the transcendental loving, holy name of Lord or Lord Krishna or Rama can immediately change the atmosphere spiritual, because the moment we chant, Krishna is personally present there. So so Prabhupada explains that if we do an offenseless kirtanam, Prabhupada uses the word offenseless kirtanam, immediately we'll have a positive association of the Lord. And he says same results can be achieved through smaranam and vandanam, or remembrance and prayers are also done, but it has to also, Prabhupada puts a caveat there, that it has to be done under a proper guide or an expert guidance. So this is very important. So this verse, previous verses, he talked about how Krishna reciprocates and everything. Now he is glorifying devotional service or the way to get the association of Krishna. We don't all have to desire that I have to get physical association of the Lord. The Lord's association can very easily be achieved by thinking about him, chanting about him, talking about him, hearing about him. All these activities can immediately help us achieve the association of the Lord, and we can feel His presence. And we also saw in the previous verses, the steel-hearted verses last week, that even after chanting, if we do not feel the presence of the Lord, that means we are doing offensive chanting. So we should all desire to do offenseless chanting so that we can constantly associate with Krishna. Text 16. Vichakshana charanopasadanat sangam yudusyo bayato antar atmanaha Vindanti hi brahmagatim galaklamas tasmai subhadra shravashe namo namaha. Let me offer my respectful obeisances again unto all the auspicious Lord Sri Krishna, the highly intellectual, simply by surrendering unto his lotus feet, are relieved of all attachment to present and future existence, and without difficulty progress towards spiritual existence. Now, Sukadeva Goswami, he is further glorifying uh, bhakti yoga, right? And he explains how devotional service, or devotees who are uh, who are surrendered to the Krishna, they doesn't have to endeavor to get out of the material world separately, but it happens automatically. Prabhupada, he sweetly paraphrases the essence of Krishna's words in 18th chapter. In the purport, Prabhupada is saying, my dear Arjuna, you are very dear to me, and therefore only for your good uh, only for your good, I will disclose the most secret part of my instruction. It is simply this: become a pure devotee of mine and give yourself unto me, and only, or unto me only. And I promise you full spiritual existence by which you may gain the eternal right of transcendental loving service unto me. Just give up all other religiosity and exclusively surrender unto me, and believe that I'll protect you from your sinful acts and I shall deliver you. Do not worry anymore. Such a beautiful way Srila Prabhupada is paraphrasing the discussion between Arjuna and Krishna, because he is again connecting to Bhagavad Gita to say, if we surrender to Krishna, he will take care of everything. So, uh, so what does surrender means? Then the next question, what does surrender means? Surrender means, Prabhupada explains in the purport, a life which is full of kirtanam, smaranam, ikshanam, etc., as explained in the previous verse. So that is the connection. So how do we surrender to Krishna? Through the previous example of the previous verse. So Prabhupada again emphasizes in the purport that we should adapt a devotional life to attain this perfection in the human part of life. It doesn't matter which part of the world we are in. Uh, so 15 and 16, it reminds one of the glories of devotional service. Uh, and Jiva Goswami, in his comment, he says that uh, one can both remember the Lord's glories and benefit from that remembrance even in Lord's absence. Uh, and he says that even one time, if we do this activity of remembering Krishna, uh, we is enough to remove all our sins. Text 17. Tapasvino dana paro yashasvino manasvino mantravida sumangalaha kshemam na vindanti vinaya darpanam tasmai shubhatra shavase namo namaha. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto all auspicious Lord Sri Krishna again and again, because the great learned sages, the great performers of charity, the great workers of distinction, the great philosophers and mystics, the great chanters of Vedic hymns, and the great followers of Vedic principles cannot achieve any fruitful results without dedication of such great qualities to the service of the Lord. This is a very, very, very important verse again. Whatever activities in any sphere of life anybody is engaging in, anything that is in sattva guna, that is considered good, cannot be successful if it is not linked to Krishna, or in some way or a form that it is linked with Krishna. That's why if you see whether all Vedic literature, whether it belongs to Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Kanda section, any part of the Vedic literature, you would see that the special emphasis is given to devotional service. There will be some form of devotional service always attached. Even in the Shraddha ceremony, we offer the pinda to Vishnu. Even in Sandhya Vandana, there is mantras of glorifying Krishna. You take any karma kanda activity, you will see that in all these karma kanda activities, there is emphasis is some way or other they are all linked with Krishna, because without Krishna, any of these activities cannot be successful. Srila Prabhupada says, in the purport, he is saying, similarly, advancement of learning, economic development, philosophical research, study in the Vedic literature, or even the execution of pious activities should be done in relation with the Lord. Without this, then the whole thing will not be successful, or it will only produce material benefits. It will not actually do anything spiritual, or will not, which is temporary, so which is basically no gain at all. If you want to really achieve some gain, then we need to link it to Krishna. So every activity we do must some way or other should be related to Krishna. This is very important principle, and that is again being emphasized by Sukadeva Goswami in this verse. Text 18. Kirata Hunandra Pulinda Pulakasa Abirasumba Yavana Kashadayaha Yenye Chapapa Yadapa Yashrayaha Sudyanti Tasmai Prabha Vishnave Namaha. Translation: Kirata Huna Andhra Pulinda Pulkasha Abira Sumba Yavana, members of the Kasa races, even others addicted to sinful acts, can be purified by taking shelter of the devotee of the Lord due to his being the supreme power. I beg to offer my respectful obeisances unto him. So, further glorification of devotional service and the devotees of the Lord. A devotee can deliver even the most sinful person. So Prabhupada in the purport, he talks about each of the races. Kirata is the people who used to live in the aborigines who used to live in Bihar and Chota Nagpur. Hunas are the people of the East Germany and Russia. Andhra is Andhra Pradesh in Tamil Nadu. Pulinda is the country of Greeks. You know, the Greeks and Romans were Pulindas. Abiras is the Sindh province on the other side of Arabian Sea. And Prabhupada also says that Muhammad Ghori and all the Mohammedans who control Afghanistan, those areas, they are called Abiras. And then Sumbas or Kankas are again a part of old Bharatavarsha. Yavanas are anybody who are the descendants of people in Turkey. Maharaj Yavana, there was who was a son of Yadu, Yayati Maharaj. Um, so there was a king called Yavana who left India and went there, and his descendants, they gave up Vedic culture and they become Yavanas. And the Western, then there are Kasa. Kasha is basically again, Prabhupada explains, are Mongolians, Chinese, and others who are on this side. So this covers the whole race. Even if somebody is not a part of Varnashrama Dharma, even somebody is very sinful, they can be turned into they can be purified if they come in association of the devotees. Prabhupada gives the example of Jesus Christ and Muhammad, two powerful devotees who are able to make even the worst people little religious. But Prabhupada also talks about how modern leaders, they should allow devotees to become leaders, because they can do good and they can make anybody into a good person. So basically, we are all struggling to improve ourselves. The easiest way to improve ourselves or become a better person or become a very purified person is by associating and taking instructions under a devotee. This is very important. Um, and Prabhupada explains how a Vaishnava is powerful enough to turn into Vaishnava, even a Kirata, etc. And he talks about how we should never question um, the purity of a devotee. One should not consider the deity to be an idol, nor should not consider the spiritual master as an ordinary man, or should not consider a pure devotee belonging to a particular caste. The moment somebody start chanting Krishna's name and becomes a devotee, immediately we accept him as supreme, as explained in this word. Why he is supreme? Because he is non-different from Krishna. Why he is non-different from Krishna? Because Krishna has very specifically empowered him to do his activity. So Again, that has been emphasized here. The previous verse he said, even the jnanis, yogis, great people, they cannot succeed without devotional service. And in the next verse, he's saying, if somebody has even come in touch with the devotee, even if he doesn't matter he's jnani yogi, even if he's the most sinful, still he can achieve. He is considered achieve the greatest destination. So that is how he is comparing devotees to other devotional service to other forms of spirituality. So text 19. So esha atma mavatam adishwaras trayimayo dharmaya sa tapomayaha gata vyalikair aja sankarabdir vitarkyalingo bhagavan prasidatam. Translation: He is the super soul and the supreme lord of all self-realized souls. He is the personification of the Vedas, religious scriptures, and austerities. He is worshipped by Lord Brahma and Shiva and all those who are transcendental to the all pretensions. Being so revered with awe and veneration, may that supreme absolute be pleased with me. Sukadeva Goswami has offered his obeisances to the Lord who can purify everyone. Now, with feelings of love, before addressing Maharaj Parikshit's question, he glorifies Krishna as the super soul and the Lord of all self-realized souls. Krishna is the Lord of all opulences, sacrifice, and intelligence, and the leader of all living entities. Now he is saying that may that Lord be pleased with me. So Krishna reciprocates with, we saw that in the previous verses in the prayers of Sukadeva Goswami, that Krishna reciprocates with all living entities according to their desires. But what is the ultimate benefit the Lord can give, right? Srila Prabhupada comments on the phrase here, Gata Vyahayaha, Gata Vyalikahai. Gyata Vyalikahai. Srila Prabhupada particularly talks about Gyata Valikahai by those who are above pretensions. The word pretension comes from pretend. Pretentious devotees means, Prabhupada explains, those who worship for some material benefit or some for personal benefit, to overcome any fears, to get money, to get out of a suffering, to become famous, or even to become liberated. Prabhupada explained this isn't true worship because the motive underlying the glorification is a selfish gain. Most people consider attaining such gain is the real purpose of is the real purpose behind religious service. That's how, go to the church, pray, go to the temple, pray, do this puja, do that, you will get something back. But even though Krishna reciprocates with everyone according to his desire, pretentious motivated service does not inspire Krishna to award him the greatest benefit. Whereas pure devotees not only worship Krishna, Prabhupada explains, because they were, sincere. Prabhupada says, because they are so sincere, they are able to rise above this pretension and come to know about Krishna. They can even understand Krishna. Why, we saw how, again, that example of Rupa Goswami, he could understand Krishna. Prabhupada writes, only by constitutional position cannot be void of all desires. The Bhukti Kami, Mukti Kami, and Siddhi Kami all desire something. But the Dishkami devotees of the Lord desire every satisfaction of the Lord. They are completely dependent on the orders of the Lord and are always ready to discharge for the satisfaction of the Lord. So this is very important. So he is now talking about among devotees, he is talking about the topmost devotees who has no desires. Text 20. Shriyapatir Yajnapatir Prajapatir Diyampatir Lokapatir Darapati Patir Gatis Chandaka Vrishni Satvatam Prasidatam Me Bhagavan Satam Patihi. May Lord Sri Krishna, who is the worshipable Lord of all the devotees, the protector and the glory of all the kings like Andaka and Vrishni of the Yadu dynasty, the husband of all the goddesses of fortune, the director of sacrifices, the leader of the living entities, controller of all intelligence, the proprietor of all the planets, spiritual and material, and the supreme incarnation on earth, the supreme all in all, be merciful upon me. So now He's explaining, Sukadeva Goswami here, he is explaining the topmost position of Krishna, right? He's explaining the topmost position of Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada in the purport, because Sukadeva Goswami is Gata Vyalikaha, one who is above all attention, one who he can understand Krishna, right? He has the capability to understand Krishna, and he has the capability to express Krishna also to others. So, Prabhupada in the purport, he says everyone wants to get the favor of Lakshmi Devi, whereas she is worshipping Krishna. So, this is very important to understand. And he is the master of sacrifices. People do different kinds of sacrifices for different benefit. Krishna is the ultimate master of every demigod and all the sacrifices. So basically, whether if somebody wants to be intelligent, somebody wants to achieve material gains, whatever it may be, he is the master of everything. He is the Pati. He is the only Purusha. Everybody else is Prakriti. So Krishna alone is the Purusha, and everybody else is the uh, um, uh, is a Prakriti. So in the purport, Prabhupada talks about how Krishna is the both Pati and the Gati of everybody. Pati means who is the master. Gati means the only destination for everybody. Krishna is our master, he is our only destination. If we try anything else in this material world, it will not work. If we can try directly or indirectly, still Krishna will be the Pati and Gati of that activity as well. Even atheist who is engaging in his own activity, for him also Krishna is the Pati and Gati, and for the supreme topmost devotee, Krishna is the Pati and Gati. The only difference is that is the pure devotee has realized Krishna as Pati and Gati, whereas this guy is denying the factuality. Because we are denying the factuality that Krishna is the Pati and the Gati, that leads to all kinds of wrong perceptions. And when we have kind of all wrong perceptions, that is the root cause of ignorance, and that is the root cause of suffering. In Vedic literature, ignorance is the root cause of suffering. That's why every day we pray, Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. The spiritual master removes this intelligence, removes this ignorance, and gives the real intelligence that Krishna is the Pati and Gati. So that is why he removes. When that ignorance is removed, then automatically all the suffering is removed. That's why we also sing Samsara Dava Nalalita Loka Tranaya Karunya Gana Ganatvam. So Prabhupada explains it's not some, the spiritual master comes and does magic and all the suffering goes away. No, he gives us the Sambandha Jnana. Right? You are a living entity. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. There is a relationship between both of you, and that relationship is based on devotional service. When the spiritual master explains this and he engages us in devotional service, he is removing that ignorance. And when that, along with the ignorance, the samsara dava also goes away. So this is very important to understand. Text 21. Yadangri abhidyana samadhi dautyaya Dhyanupasyanti hi tattvam atmanaha vadanti chaitat kavayo yatarucham same mukundo bhagavan prasiditam. It is the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna who gives liberation by thinking of his lotus feet at every second. Following in the footsteps of authorities, the devotees in trance can see the absolute truth. The learned mental speculators, however, think of him according to their whims. May the Lord be pleased with me. So here he is very clearly explaining that we cannot understand Krishna by our own whims. People they speculate God is this, God is that, God should be like this, God should be like that, and there is next level of people who interpret the literature according to this. Even though Krishna Prabhupada very in many lectures he is explaining how people say Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is a metaphorical person. There is nobody called Krishna. There is nobody called Arjuna. All these are nonsensical or atheistic interpretations are given. So everybody according to their whims and fancies, if we go, we will never reach a conclusion, because everybody have their own perception and everybody will come out with their own idea. There is no end to it, and each of it will contradict each other, so that we will never achieve the real clear way. The only real way to achieve is to knowing by Krishna perfectly, and that is by thinking and surrendering to his lotus feet under an authority. Again, the insistence is under an authority, because again devotional service cannot be performed on our own. We do not know what devotional service is, because we have been in this material world, even though it's our constitutional position, because we are so much associated with the matter, and we are now completely in the material consciousness. In material consciousness, nobody can understand how to serve Krishna, because he is spiritual, and matter and spirit are completely opposite to each other. They are not compatible with each other at all. Matter, spirituality, spiritual, every spiritual element is Sachidananda, Sat, Sit and Ananda, whereas matter is Asat, Achit and Nirananda. Completely opposite both are. So we cannot understand how to serve a spiritual entity in from a material platform. So then the spiritual master acts as an intermediary, that even with our material senses, how we can engage in spiritual activity. So that is why we should never speculate and do things on our own in Krishna consciousness. Always follow the instructions of the spiritual master, because he is in spiritual platform. Simultaneously he can understand the material platform. He makes that connection, because Krishna Paramatma, he manifests himself in the form of spiritual master. From inside he is giving instruction, we cannot understand. So Paramatma, spiritual master, is an incarnation of Paramatma, the Karunya incarnation of Paramatma. Out of his mercy he comes in a form that we can perceive, we can understand and we can follow. But the moment we try to do on our own, then the second part, uh, you know we are doing according to our whims. It's okay, you know Prabhupada set standards. We need to follow the standards. That's it. Text 22. Prachodita yena purusha saraswati vitanvata jasya satim smritim hridi swalakshana pradurabad kilasyataha same rishinam vrishabha prashidatam. Translation: May the Lord, who is the beginning of the creation, amplified the potent knowledge of Brahma from within his heart and inspired him with full knowledge of creation and his own self, and who appeared to be generated from the mouth of Brahma, please be pleased with me. So this is again here. Uh, he is further talking about the original knowledge is comes from Krishna. Nobody can give knowledge other than Krishna, because Krishna is the only one who is out of all these three modes of material nature and the four defects of the material nature. We have heard about the four defects of the Pratyaksha Pramana. So when somebody becomes the devotee of the Lord inspires them from within, which is related to the first or the 11th verse we saw, that Krishna inspires from within, because the devotee follows exactly what Krishna is saying, and whatever he speaks becomes beyond the three modes or also beyond the four defects. So that is why it is very important. Brahma was able to even create this whole material world only after he received instruction from Krishna. So nobody is independent in this material world. Everybody is dependent on the Krishna. The more and more we surrender to Krishna and more we engage in his devotional service, the more and more Krishna will reveal himself to us. Sukadeva Goswami, as a spiritual master, he is setting the example. He's setting the example, and he's saying, even though I am talking the answers, these are all not my answers. I am talking because Krishna is inspiring me to talk. So the devotee is very clear in his idea that he is not the doer. Krishna is the ultimate doer and he is just an instrument. Nimitra matrena. This is very again important when we do any service, whether it's cooking service, cleaning, washing, throwing out garbage, any service we are doing in the temple, we need to be very clear in our understanding. We are able to do this service because Krishna is empowering us. And it's, sometimes people think, without me nothing happens. No, it's actually without Krishna nothing happens. We are just an instrument. If we go and act as an instrument, we will get benefit. If we do not, we are the losers. So when we do service in the temple, it's not that we are doing something great for somebody. We are doing something good for our own self. And Actually, Krishna is allowing us to do, and that is why we are able to do it. Not only he is allowing us, he is empowering us as well. On our own, we have no capacity to do any service for Krishna. And Prabhupada in the purport, he talks about the difference between Prakrita and Aprikrata. Uh, you know, uh, how there are two sounds. Prakrita sound is the material sound, and Aprakrita is the spiritual sound. So when somebody sings the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, it's an Aprakrita sound because the Maha Mantra 8 is Krishna himself. That's why yesterday we were reading a quote where Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is talking. If somebody is only interested in the tala or in the raga or in the musical part of it, they will really not perceive Krishna, because these things are not the basis of Krishna. The basis of hearing Krishna is devotional service and our loving attitude, and that with that mood, when we chant the holy name of the Lord, that's when Krishna will manifest. This is not like material music. So this is something very, very important again for devotees to understand. Text 23. Bhutair mahadbir yayimo puru vibur nirmaya sete yadamusya purushaha bhunte gunan sodasha sodashatvaka solankrishita bhagavan vachamsi me. May the Supreme Lord of Supreme Personality of Godhead, who enlivens the materially created bodies of the elements by lying down within the universe, and who in his Purusha incarnation causes the living being to be generated or to be subjected to the 16 divisions of the material modes, which are his generator, be pleased to decorate my statements. So here again, as I said, um, Sukadeva Goswami is understanding. He is very clearly saying that devotees don't view themselves as the doer. Rather, they desire to only act as a Krishna's instrument, and they pray to effectively be used by as a tool in his hand. And that's what Sukadeva Goswami is saying. Like a wood in the hands of a carpenter, or a tool in the hands of a carpenter which carves the wood. Similarly, the devotee, they just want to act as a tool, and they also don't want the glorification at the end. They want the glorification to go to ultimately to Krishna. That is a mood of a devotee. And here we see how Sukadeva Goswami is glorifying the Lord and then saying, let that Lord talk through me, let him use me as an instrument. So this is very important. uh, and Prabhupada in the purport, in the previous purport, he is also saying uh, he will invoke the pleasure of the personality of Godhead so that his statements may be successful and be appreciated by the hearers. The devotees always think of himself as instrumental for any successful things that are carried out, and he declines to take credit for anything done by himself. So, Sukadeva Goswami, we see even in the case of Srila Prabhupada, he was setting the perfect example, because if anybody would praise him, Srila Prabhupada would say, the success belongs to my spiritual master. So he had the perfect mood, and he had given us the perfect example. Text 25. Etat evatma burajan naradaya vipruchate veda garbobhyadi sakshadyadaha hariratmanaha. Oh, sorry. Text 24. Namastasmai bhagavate vasudevaya vedase papurjanam ayam saumya yanmukhamburu hasavam. Translation. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Srila Vyasadeva, the incarnation of Vasudeva, who compiled the Vedic literature. The pure devotees think of the nectarian transcendental knowledge dropping from the lotus-like mouth of the Lord. So now, after glorifying Krishna, he is glorifying the Guru Parampara. He is not just again, from Krishna directly jumping. He is first glorifying his spiritual master, and he is glorifying and taking the mercy of the spiritual master. So Sukadeva Goswami here, he is begging for his spiritual master's blessings, because he wants to answer Parikshit Maharaj based on what he has heard in the disciple succession, not independently on his own. Right? Even though we see that because it is tasted by Sukadeva Goswami's, it comes from him, and because it is tasted by him, it is more tastier. Still, he will not say anything independent. He may explain it in his own way, but he will not change the original description of the spirituality. And that is why here again he is emphasizing the disciple succession. So he is praying, and after praying, he is now going to answer Parikshit Maharaj. एतद् एवात्मा बुराजन् नारदाय विपृच्छते वेदगर्भो अबध्यात् साक्षात् यदः हरिरात्मनः. Translation: My dear king, Brahma the firstborn, on being questioned by Narada, exactly apprised him on this subject, as it was directly spoken by the Lord to his own son, who was impregnated with Vedic knowledge from his very birth. So here he is going back to our Brahma Narada Gaudiya Sampradaya. He is going to the original Sampradaya. He is quoting based on the Sampradaya again, and he is going to answer based on that. So with that, we finish this chapter. We have finished chapter 4. Next week we'll move into chapter 5. Thank you all for joining, and if you have any questions, you can contact me. Hare Krishna. Thank you.